CL 650 presents Anthony Gismondi and Casey Wilson. This is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine. Now, here's Tony and Casey.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Best of Food and Wine. We're live on the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. It's year 38. Italy is the theme, and we've got a lot of different people lined up for the show tonight. Casey Wilson, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Tony. After the gala dinner, 3 other dinners, I think I met you at the Croatian dinner.
Yes.
Then we were at Chipino's.
But where were you the last 2 hours while I was holding down the fort at the Pacific Rim?
I am working, Tony.
You were sleeping?
No, I was not sleeping.
No?
You don't sleep during the festival.
Right
that
on.
happens after.
Art Factora, we're ready to go. Let's start with, we've got a great prize that we're giving away here live inside the room. So why don't we tell people what's happening?
Yeah, we are broadcasting live from the Vancouver Convention Center. Doors just open. People are flooding in. Wine is being poured. Stop by our booth. We're on the back wall, kind of close to the flags, and you can win a deluxe night for 2 at the Waterfront Villa in the Painted Boat Resort Spa and Marina on the Sunshine Coast. That's 2 nights, BC Ferry passes, a couples massage, and a breakfast, a deluxe breakfast, $2,500 prize value. All you got to do is come by and enter your name.
I'm just asking, what is a couples massage?
I think it's whatever you want it to be. Yeah, for whatever price it costs.
I'm
That's
going to
the
book
best.
one for Tony and his wife.
Okay. Joining us now right off the top, and we're really delighted to have Darryl Brooker with us. He's the chief winemaker at Mission Hill Winery. Darryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you. You've been at Mission Hill now for 1 year?
Yeah, a little under, about 9 months. Yeah.
9 months.
Yeah.
You settled in, or?
I am. It took a little while to settle in, you know. It's
Yeah.
it was a big change, but it's been a great
So
change.
you've come over from Cedar Creek. So what's the difference in production there between the 2 facilities, would you say?
It's fairly significant, probably 5 times the size.
5 times.
Yeah.
Wow, how many labels?
And I haven't counted them up, to be honest. So
There's a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, there is. You know, Mission Hill. You know, obviously we start with 5 vineyards, but Reserve is such an important label for us, and then up to Terroir, and then the Legacy series with Oculus. So it is quite a lot of labels. We've got a lot of vineyards. We've been there a long time, so it's a lot of established varieties.
A lot of good vineyards.
A lot of fantastic
Yes,
vineyards.
it must be wonderful.
That was the most exciting part of the change.
I'll bet.
You know, to get out and walk those vineyards and see what we've got was incredible.
When you make a move from one winery to another winery, I guess it's in the same region, that helps. But it's got to be an unsettling thing.
It is, yeah. I think the best part about this, though, was, you know, John Symes has been there he's been at Mission Hill as a winemaker since 92. You know,
Yep.
He arrived, I think, summer 92. And so to have him there and to have that transition, it wasn't like it just happened overnight. And every other job I've taken, the winemaker isn't there to hand over
He's
to
gone,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, from a winemaking point of view, I felt relatively comfortable once John showed me how the winery worked and all the rest of it. But it was really the vineyards. You know, so last harvest, I got to walk through every block with John and be like, I'm thinking about picking this. What do you think? Well, in my experience, you know, I would have done it. You know, I would let it hang because I think it'll go in this direction. And he planted every vine in all of those vineyards. So that transition was amazing. It's rare. You don't get that very often at all. So
No.
that was really nice.
When did you come to Canada?
I moved
Darryl?
to Canada in 2003. I was obviously from Australia originally, but I was 5 years in New Zealand working for Villa Maria, and then I moved to Ontario in 2003. Yeah.
And then you moved out to British Columbia?
In 2010. Yeah.
To work at Cedar Creek.
Which was the best move of my life. So,
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
Well,
absolutely
yeah.
love it.
It seems to have turned out that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, when you make wine at Cedar Creek and then you go to Mission Hill, are you going to make Cedar Creek wine at Mission Hill, or like how does the style? Whose style is what?
Yeah.
Or hopefully you don't have a style on the wine, or I don't know. How do you see it?
Yeah, no, I think I will have a style on the wine, but it won't be Cedar Creek style. they're different vineyards. It's a different winery. It's a different expression, and it's quite a delicate transition in the sense that there's a history to the wine and there's a following to the wine, but you still want to put your own stamp on the wines as well. I couldn't make them the same way John made them, even if I tried. So they will be different, but it's looking for the nuances and looking to enhance those nuances. But they'll be incredibly different to Cedar Creek because the vineyards are different.
And it's a slow process anyways, because a lot of John's wines are still there.
Exactly.
So you sort of ease in, I guess, first with the whites, which move or turn over quicker.
Yeah.
And then eventually to the big reds.
Definitely. And I've been lucky enough. John and I knew this transition was coming well before it actually happened. So he was very good at involving me in blending sessions.
Yeah.
So right back to the 13 Reds, which still aren't released yet. We're just releasing 12s. Right back to the 13 Reds, I've been involved in blending and I know the wines and I've had my say in them, so to speak. But they're still definitely John's wines, Mission Hill wines as well. But I feel comfortable speaking to them and I feel a part of them. So that's been lucky as well.
Right.
And a lot of new technology for you?
Yeah, Anthony von Mandel, the owner of Mission Hill, is so incredibly passionate about making sure we're always pushing the boundaries. So Mission Hill had good technology and we're also introducing more. It's whether that just be as simple as fermentation vessels. Mission Hill didn't have any concrete fermentation vessels. So, we've already started introducing concrete. We're introducing more this year.
Yay!
Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. And they're all the little nuances but it's always about pushing the boundaries and cutting edge. And right now, we're a large winery, but what we're really focused on is showing people how small and special we can be at the same time. What
is the difference between a New Zealand winemaker and an Australian winemaker?
Australian winemakers are way better. That's a starting point. More intuitive, more talented.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
All that stuff aside, is there a difference in the way, perhaps you think, or?
Yeah, maybe.
It's a cooler climate versus a warmer. I don't know, but
I think it's, and that's why I feel lucky. I spent a lot more time. I spent time in New Zealand before coming here because there's some huge similarities. I was in Hawke's Bay, the Bordeaux Red area for most of my time, and the growing season is not quite as warm in New Zealand, but it's a little longer. But other than that, you have the same challenges and the same benefits. So I think New Zealand winemakers are a little more in touch with the vineyard because, Australian vineyards just by nature are often miles and miles and miles away. It's tough. And Australia's more technology driven, whereas I think New Zealand's a little more terroir driven. So,
Our guest is Darryl Brooker. He's the chief winemaker at Mission Hill, and he's only just coming up on his first year at the winery. But you still have, I think what's happened is you also have a connection with Cedar Creek to finish your wines too. Is that sort of part of the deal?
That's right. Yeah. Nobody can leave. It's like the mafia. And
so you're working with a new colleague at. You should introduce the winemaker from Cedar Creek to us too.
Yeah, definitely. So Alexis Moore. Alexis is actually a Canadian. However, she spent the last 10 years in New Zealand, and I met her on a trip that I made to New Zealand 2 years ago, and I was really impressed with her wines and her passion. And she left Canada. She grew up in Nova Scotia, worked in Ontario for a little while, left Canada, went and studied and made wine in New Zealand and other spots around the world, including Oregon and many spots. And I was just really impressed with her wines. I knew she wanted to come back to Canada. So when Anthony asked me to move over to Mission Hill and transition into that role, he said, but the first step is to find a new winemaker for Cedar Creek. And so Alexis was front of mind. I was like, I think I've got the right person.
Because that can be difficult.
It can be very difficult. And obviously, I'd been thinking about it for a little while, and we had a few candidates, but we didn't have to look much past Alexis. And we liked her experience, her international experience, her aromatic white experience, her Pinot Noir experience was very good. But also the fact that she was Canadian was a nice loop as well.
Yes, bring her back home.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into the Mission Hill wines. We're going to talk a lot about Mission Hill, but while we're still on the subject, there's a brand new winery right beside Cedar Creek that people have seen go up. Can you tell us a little bit about Martin's Lane and what's happening with that project and how you're involved or not in that? Or
yeah, Martin's Lane is a separate winery to Cedar Creek. I helped out a little bit at the start, helped to find a winemaker and with some of the equipment as well. But Shane Munn is the winemaker at Martin's Lane, and we started making wine there in the 2014 vintage. Absolutely amazing winery. It's focused solely on Pinot Noir and Riesling.
Riesling, yeah.
Yeah.
And the facility was built for Pinot Noir and Riesling, I guess.
It's state of the art. That's a game changer. It's going to change the way, Pinot Noir, and that's the winery, and I say just the winery, and it's a masterpiece. But if you imagine the vineyards that were planted 5 years, 10 years earlier to actually feed this winery, and I think we're up to 9 clones of Pinot Noir in the vineyards.
Wow.
and acres, all these different microclimates. So it's going to be an incredible.
And the machinery that was installed, the presses and all that, were sort of Pinot centric, or
definitely, yeah. Everything from start to finish was built around Pinot Noir. Obviously Riesling as well. We have a press that's 100% dedicated to Riesling, a German Wilmers press, surprisingly.
And so what would the difference be with a press that's you're going to use just for Riesling grapes?
Yeah, when you're using a press just for Riesling, it's the technology in pressing. So Wilmers developed this very different technology where most presses press from the outside in, and this press presses from the inside out. So you get very pristine and clean juice coming through. So yeah, it's quite interesting actually. Yeah.
And can you sneak some Mission Hill fruit over there if you had to?
If I need to, but I've got enough toys at Mission Hill, so I don't need to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hear you've been ordering some toys too at Mission Hill. So
definitely. No, it's always moving forward, and Mission Hill's such an established winery that we never want to sit back and rest on your laurels. Always want to be raising the bar and setting the new standard.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about picking? How is picking done at Mission Hill? Is it done indifferent? Is it any hand picking done?
Oh yeah, a lot of hand picking. So basically, we sort a huge majority of our red grapes. White grapes don't need as much sorting; they're picked earlier in the harvest. Red grapes, it's harder to grow red grapes in the Okanagan Valley than it is white. So we have to take the extra step. So anything that gets sorted goes across our sorting line. We're roughly half hand picked and half machine picked. Yeah.
Our guest is Darryl Brooker. He's the chief winemaker at Mission Hill. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to start tasting some wines from Mission Hill. We're going to start talking about some of Darryl's new missions at Mission Hill, I guess we could say. And we'll check out the wines as well. You're listening to a special edition of the Best in Food and Wine. We're live on location at the 2016 Vancouver International Wine Festival. We're on the floor on the east side of the room. Drop by. Art's got a fantastic contest going for you. You can win just a great weekend.
Yeah, a great weekend at the Painted Boat Resort Spa and Marina on the Sunshine Coast.
All right.
$2,500.
And all they have to do is drop their name in a bucket.
Hopefully they know their name and their phone number. Maybe sign up before you start tasting.
Does anybody know any phone numbers anymore? I'm not sure they do.
I don't think so.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back live from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. It's year 38. Italy is the theme.
Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on Smooth and Easy. Sea Isle 650. Now back to Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on Smooth and Easy. Sea Isle 650.
Because I'm happy. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy.
Welcome back to the Best of Food and Wine. I'm Tony Gismondi.
I'm Casey Wilson.
We're live on the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. 38 years this festival's been running. Started out with one winery, and it fluctuates now between about 150 and 165 wineries. The theme this year is Italy. There's 60 wineries from Italy in the room. It's quite an amazing show. I don't know. Our guest, Darryl Brooker, is the winemaker from Mission Hill. Darryl, have you been in any of the Italian booths?
I have.
You have?
I found time to visit most of the booths.
Really?
Yeah.
And so what would you be looking for in Italy? Anything in particular? Or
I'm always interested in Moscato, as strange as that might sound, but I find it a fun.
That does sound strange.
Yeah, I like to see the different styles that people take them, and because what we often have access to are not the really interesting ones.
Yeah.
And then Barolo, I absolutely love Barolo, so I spend a lot of time there. Yeah.
And there's some pretty amazing high-end sparkling wines now from Italy.
I was really impressed with
which you don't make.
No.
So it's kind of fun to.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to make a sparkling wine at Mission Hill? Is that
never say never, but there's no immediate.
It's
plans.
not on Anthony's radar.
Not at this point. I think
he prefers to drink champagne just alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you,
exactly.
Darryl, you're a champagne drinker.
I do. I
Yes.
love champagne. Yeah.
I think it's an Aussie thing myself.
Oh, really?
Yes, a lot of Aussie. They drink more champagne than I think in Australia and in Britain than we do.
It's breakfast. It's the breakfast wine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Mission Hill now. I just can't. It's really hard to understand how big that job is that you've taken on there. I mean, there's so many different things going on. Could you explain the wines of Mission Hill to us, maybe in a broader way, to our listeners at the moment, and how they're rolling out?
Definitely, yeah. So the first step is really what we have in the vineyard. So although we might have an idea historically where grapes go, every vineyard's given a chance, and as they get older, the quality changes. Ideally, it gets better as the vineyards get older and the roots get deeper. So the first step is keeping everything separate. I was really amazed when I first arrived at Mission Hill is how many small tanks we have. I've been through a lot of large wineries around the world, and large wineries generally have very large tanks. And Mission Hill, I think I counted under 2,000 litres. There's something like 62 tanks under 2,000 litres. So the place is set up like you'd ideally set up a small winery. So every lot that's picked from all of our vineyards is all kept separate.
It's all kept separate.
Yeah, so that was the first step, and we keep them separate, and then we, as time goes on and we get a feel for the wines, we can start allocating quality levels. So for Mission Hill, we start at 5 vineyards.
Right.
That's our entry level wines, fruit driven, fruit forward. Then we move into
these are a series of varietals. There's Chardonnay and
it's Pinot. Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris. There's what else do we have a Pinot Noir. We've got a whole range of wines.
And they're very good value, 5 vineyards.
They are, and that's really what a lot of people know Mission Hill for. That's their starting point.
And they're named after the 5. They're called 5 vineyards because they came off of 5 sites. Is that
that's correct?
Yeah.
You can break our vineyards down into 5 distinct regions, and so that's where the historical name comes from.
Right.
And then from there we step up to reserve, and reserve is really that's where we start to see a true expression and really what Mission Hill's about. Much smaller volume, but still readily available. And it's the reserves where we make our once again usually single varietal, but we do have a Cab Merlot. We've got a Syrah, things like that in there. And
Chardonnay. You have a Viognier reserve.
Yeah, we have a Viognier as of this year.
I thought when you got there, it would follow you. Yeah,
that'll be a new wine for us this year, the Viognier Reserve, and the Chardonnay Reserve is it's such a well followed wine. And then from there, what we used to have what was called SLC, Small Lots Collection.
Right.
We've replaced that, and this is an evolution of our vineyard age. We've replaced that with what we call the Terroir series, and these are very, very small production. And I say replaced SLC, but they're completely different wines because now we're down to 250, 300, 350 case lots, and they're all single varietal, single vineyard wines. And we've got such amazing holdings, and that's where the inspiration of Terroir came from. So it's an expression series.
Yeah. So how many different terroirs have you done, or will you do? Or I know they're changing all the time. But
At the moment we have a Chardonnay, we have a Viognier, we have a Sauvignon Blanc, we have 2 Merlots. We're just releasing our first organic wine, an organic Merlot, from a single vineyard that we have that we've managed it organic since the day we planted the vineyard.
Wow.
And then we follow that through a certified organic in the vineyard and in the winery. So that'll be released in a few weeks, and that'll be under the Terroir series as well. So we've got and then a Syrah. So we've got quite an amazing array of wines under the Terroir. Yeah. But as I say, I was adding it up. It equates to 1% of our production. The Terroir. That's how small they are.
Wow.
Yeah. And then above the Terroir series,
then we have our legacy tier. So obviously that's Oculus, Quatrain, Compendium, Perpetua. Yeah.
So so you've got a nice pyramid for you to work in.
Definitely, yeah. And that's the good structure, and it's looking at all the vineyards, and it's allocating the vineyards, moving them up and down, and finding the unique expressions for a terroir. Oculus and Compendium, they're still blends. They're still taking. So it's nice to have that level where you can take the best parcels out of certain vineyards and blend them together, but then one tier down, and it's not even really a tier down, it's a tier sideways. You have the Terroir series.
Okay, I'm thirsty now.
Yes.
All right. So you brought along a wine to taste tonight. One of the first wines we're going to taste is the Mission Hill Crosswinds Syrah. So this is right out of the Terroir series. 2012?
2012, yeah.
And speaking of 38 years in the festival, this is 38 barrels.
Yes.
Only
yes,
38
that's right.
barrels. How much wine do you get out of a barrel, approximately?
You get around 15 to 20 cases, yeah.
15 to 20.
Yeah, by the time you account for losses, etc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So not much. Kind of special.
Yeah.
Very
We should mention
special.
that the series, the way it's developed now, you can buy the wines. If you're a member of the wine club at Mission Hill,
Yes.
you have access to these wines.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're only sold in restaurants.
That's correct, yeah.
So you would encounter them on a restaurant wine list.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, Syrah. We're doing such a great job with Syrah. Are you pretty impressed with British Columbia Shiraz or Syrah?
Yeah.
The same name for the grape?
Definitely, and standing behind the Mission Hill table yesterday and today, and so you have other producers who don't know the Okanagan wineries well, but they're winemakers and very accomplished winemakers, and they come by.
Yeah.
They try the Syrah, and you just see them nodding, and it's like,
Is that right? Oh,
these
that's so
guys
great.
know what they're doing with Syrah. It's a great variety, and it's so well expressed in the Okanagan Valley.
You've come from Australia. You grew up in Shirazville, sort of.
Yeah.
Why is the Syrah so good in BC, do you think? Or what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's Syrah loves heat, and we do, even though we have a shorter growing season than a lot of regions, we have an incredibly intense heat, not just the daily high of temperature, but the hours of sunlight per day. So that really pushes Syrah over the edge, but it still keeps a cool climate nuance. You still get that slight hint of pepper and the red berry fruit. It's not really jammy.
Mostly in the desert that you're picking Syrah?
Yeah,
Or is it only in the desert?
For us, it's only in the desert. It's only south of Oliver. We don't grow any Syrah north of Black Sage, actually. Yeah.
Because?
We just don't think it consistently ripens. You take a year like a 15. We could have got Syrah ripe in Kelowna.
Yes.
But you've got to look over a 10-year period. And when people try our wines, we want to be consistent every year, and we want them. Obviously, we're not making the same wine every year. There's vintage variation, but we want to be confident that we can get it ripe, and so that's why we stick to Oliver with Syrah. Yeah.
So, while you were messing around with wine in Ontario, Mission Hill was just getting underway with Syrah and Shiraz. They actually did two different wines at the time. They were kind of two different styles. Has that evolved now, or into one style, or I don't know? You use the names interchangeably, or?
Yeah. I think it's evolved more into one style, and the name is a little more historical. When I say one style, though, a reserve Syrah will taste very different to this. A reserve will be a little more fruit forward, maybe a little less restrained. It'll have a different oak profile. So, although, I would say it's one style of Syrah, they're very different wines. So this wine, I should mention, this is from Black Sage. Right now, vineyard at Black Sage, it goes really, really far back, and there's a rock face and a really steep hill. And it's almost an amphitheatre, and it looks down all over the vineyards along Black Sage.
That looks down on the Red Barn.
Exactly.
Site?
Yeah. It's right up in the back. So you've obviously been there, and so this
very
Syrah
hot back there.
There's actually Syrah and Cab Sav sitting right next to each other back
and a
in
bunch
that
of snakes too.
Yes, there's a rattlesnake reserve right at the back of the Syrah. So
I think I'll fly over in the helicopter.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful Syrah.
What would you have with that, Casey Syrah? What would your...
Oh, man, it's so... to me, it's very elegant, and, of course, my first thing is always lamb.
Yeah, like a grilled lamb chop would be just...
It would. It'd
so
be
nice.
excellent.
Yeah.
Because the acidity is good in the wine, too, so I think people sometimes underestimate... They get this big wine, but they don't understand the acidity, and that would be so great with the beef.
Yeah, I agree.
With the lamb.
The acidity is what's lost. Here we are with Italy as the theme country, and look at the beautiful acidity in their wines. And Syrah has natural acidity. It's meant to have more acid than a Bordeaux Reds, as an example. So, yeah.
Really delicious wine. What about the aging potential? Would you suggest?
I think this is very comfortable for 5 years. It's a soft, restrained wine, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have the intensity to age. I would be, and when I say 5 years, I mean 5 years from vintage. So I think it's got easily another, 18 months, 24 months ahead of it. And it'll probably go a couple of years beyond that. But for me, it's generous. It's looking really restrained and beautiful now.
everybody's happy with the 2012 vintage.
Yes,
It's a lovely vintage.
It is. It's an elegant vintage. I guess the French would say a classical vintage, and that's what it was.
You could live with those kind of years every year in the Okanagan.
Definitely. Yeah.
But that's why they're so special, because you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful wine, the Mission Hill Family Estate Crosswind Syrah 2013. This is from the Terroir series, so once again available as a member. We can talk about how you can sign up at Mission Hill to be a member of the club, or find it in, I would say, selected restaurants around the city or around the province.
Definitely.
Yeah, our guest is Darryl Brooker. He's the chief winemaker. We're going to take a quick break. He's going to come back for one more segment. We're going to talk about Merlot and a few other things at Mission Hill before they get going on the 2016 vintage. It's just around the corner, the start.
It is.
You're listening to the Best of Food and Wine. It's a very special broadcast live from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. It's the 38th year. There are 155 wineries. The room is packed, Art. Have you seen anybody you know yet?
No, but a bunch of people have seen me because they know me.
I just saw my son walk by, actually. I'll have to flag him down because we would like people to come by and put their name in the draw for a very special prize.
That's a 2-night stay at the waterfront villa at the Painted Boat Resort, spa and marina on the Sunshine Coast. $2,500 value.
Great. We'll take a quick break. I'm Tony Gismondi.
I'm Casey Wilson.
We'll be right back.
This is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on CL 650. Now, back to Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on CL 650.
Show it. I'm sexy and I know it.
Welcome back to the Best of Food and Wine. I'm Tony Gismondi.
I'm Casey Wilson.
We're live on the floor tonight. CIL 650's Best of Food and Wine is live at the 2016 Vancouver International Wine Festival. We're here, of course, with our incredible producer, Art Factora. And Art, I'm
just doing what I can do.
You're just doing what you can do.
Making you guys sound better.
How many wines have you tasted, Art?
Altogether, probably about 20.
That's all?
Well, in the last half hour.
Oh, good. I like to hear that. Because I had 20 the first morning before 10 o'clock. So.
Now that's a breakfast.
Yeah. Our guest is Darryl Brooker. He's the new chief winemaker. He's only been there about 8 or 9 months. He's coming up on his first year at Mission Hill. He's got just one big massive job. Is your life changed?
No, but we had to get him a larger headset.
Yes.
Yes, his head's, getting larger and
big.
larger, right.
What about your personal life? Is it changed a bit or not?
Yeah, no, it has. Yeah. It's a demanding job, and it does take more time. But I was ready for it.
Yeah.
So I've seen a little less of my wife and kids, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But and as I get more comfortable, it's good.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so we've got a really nice tasting in front of us. You brought us 2 Merlots, also still from the Terroir series, but interestingly from 2 different sites. Tell us a bit about the 2 sites, and then we'll maybe what we could expect, and we'll try the wines and see if we can find that.
But before we taste, everybody's drinking Merlot again.
Yes, I know.
I just can't get over that. That's so great.
Which is awesome, because it's such a consistent variety for us. And what we really wanted to do here in the Terroir series was show that Merlot isn't Merlot. Merlot is dependent on where it's grown, because people talk about Pinot Noir and Riesling and Chardonnay as being so terroir driven.
Yes.
Merlot is as well, and that's really what we want to show here. So we have 2 Merlots, same vintage, made in the same way, which I can go into a little bit as well. But the first Merlot is our Western Trail Merlot. So that's from a vineyard that we have in West Osoyoos. But just before you hit the town of Osoyoos, you can turn onto Highway 3, and the vineyard's up on Highway 3. So it's a little more elevated, and it's a cool vineyard. So the only red grapes we have in this vineyard are Merlot. Everything else is Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Viognier.
Because it wouldn't ripen.
Exactly, yeah. Merlot's the only red we feel comfortable ripening there, because it's a cooler vineyard. Then the second wine, this is our split rail, and this is actually from our hottest vineyard. So next to this Merlot, we have Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Syrah, and so what we're showing here, and this is right on the border. These rows finish, and it's about 3 meters to the fence that divides the US. So there isn't a more southern vineyard in all of Canada. And what this shows is Merlot from a relatively cool site and a really warm site. What I see is the tannins in the Western Trail, in the West Osoyoos one, are a little tighter. They're a little less developed, and the wine is more restrained. And then when we we look at the split rail, they're much bigger tannins, they're riper, it's more dark red berry fruits as well. And it's been fun pouring them at the booth. We've had these two the whole time, and I would say it's 50-50 as to what people are liking. Yeah.
And why did they think you couldn't grow red wine grapes in the southern Okanagan?
I'm not sure, because I mean we have the soil, we have the heat, and so there's no, especially Merlot. It's very consistent. And right now, I think our challenge is to show people how exciting Merlot can be. We can show them different expressions, and that was part of the motivation here. We actually have 3 Merlots in this series. As I mentioned, we have the organic vineyard Merlot as well.
Yeah.
So, it's a very diverse variety. We just need to...
Well, I think the traditional sort of German roots of the valley, the people that planted early ripening grapes, all of this stuff sort of conspired in the 70s and 80s. Thinking, well, we got to get this stuff right.
Yeah.
But of course, viticulture is so much better now.
Exactly.
We know so much more.
Yeah.
And even so, having said all that, one of the things I've been talking to this week to a lot of winemakers is how warm it is in the Okanagan in terms of the soil. I guess you guys measure the heat in the soil.
Yeah.
And that gives you an idea when things are going to get going.
Definitely.
And it's starting earlier and earlier every year.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, we all know what a mild winter we've had, but there's a difference between a mild winter and a warm, a warm end of winter, and that's what we're seeing. Really, the vines don't start to wake up until you're consistently achieving above 10 degrees average.
Right.
But what we're seeing is, highs of 10, 11, and 12 at the moment, and the soil's warming up, the sun is shining. Normally we're a cloud cover for January, February.
Yeah.
What's the advantage to that, Darryl?
It can go both
I don't know
ways.
if it's an advantage.
Yeah, it's more scary because we're worried about spring frost coming out. So
Yes.
and this is great growing. It's farming. There's no matter what the year is like, we're always nervous about something. It's never in the bank until the grapes are in the winery. So yeah.
But early, the early break, you got frost problems possibly.
Yeah.
But then you get a longer growing season, so there's
the
some
advantage.
Protection against maybe not having a perfect year.
Yep.
So it's farming.
Yeah, exactly. No, and you adapt your viticulture, and I guess going back to Casey's point, that is what's changed. Is that the viticulture is just so much further ahead of what we're using world standard viticulture. You go to the best regions around the world, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
I want to ask you a tougher question about viticulture, because I think viticulture in the Okanagan is still maybe not like when you see what's going on in places like Australia. Where it's really cutting edge.
Yeah.
I still feel like we're a bit behind, but particularly when it comes to organic and biodynamic and, still using sprays in a desert, I find it quite amazing. Will you have some influence on what's going to happen at Mission Hill?
Definitely. We're, with the backing of Anthony von Mandel, we're looking at switching all of our vineyards over to organic. As I mentioned, we already have one certified through to the wine. We've stopped weed spraying in all of our vineyards. There is no weed spraying at all. And we will transition every single vineyard over to organic. And
so no
how
more
long is
herbicides.
that taken, and is that a big financial commitment?
It is a big financial commitment, and it's really one big step at a time, and the weed spraying is a huge step. It sounds like a simple thing to do, but it does take time to invest in equipment because you have to remove those weeds. They compete against the vine. To be certified organic, you're looking at 3 years of running your vineyard organic, and then you can get certification, and then you have to follow it through in the wine area as well. So we're transitioning. We've got a lot of acres and some beautiful properties, and many of them, this isn't like we've just decided yesterday. We've been transitioning like this because we learned we had this one vineyard, our organic vineyard, and it was an apple orchard for forever, and it was always run organic. So when we purchased it and planted it, we said, let's keep this organic. And we've learned so much from doing that for the last 6-7 years that we've been able to slowly transfer those techniques into our other vineyards. So I think we're well positioned. It's and it's not just organic. I was counting the other day. I can count, I think, around about 9 viticulturists in all of Canada, and we have 5 working for our company. And we've got half of the viticulturists, and we're invested in drones. We've got flights. We're flying all of our vineyards, 5-6 times a year to take those unmanned flight pictures and learn about our vineyards from above, because you can never get a greater view from above at different stages of growing season. So it's really using technology in the vineyard to make sure we continue to advance.
And the wines themselves, will you be more and more natural natural, or less inputs, more
that's
lighter touch, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's certainly the goal. And we're pulling back on the oak, pulling back on the wood to try and show more fruit. Oak used to be a way that we're making a red wine, we need more oak. I've spoken a bit about our organic Merlot. We're down to 20% new oak in our organic Merlot
fantastic.
Versus what used to be 40 or 50.
So great. Yeah.
And what about biodynamic? Can you ever see going
Definitely.
that far?
Yeah, we've and this year we went to a few spots in California to visit biodynamic producers to see what they're doing. I visited biodynamic producers in Europe, and I think I can see us getting there eventually.
It's very impressive, isn't it? What they do.
It is, and it really it's important to be stewards of the land. Everyone says it, but to live it is a lot harder, and it's a lot more expensive. So you've got to have an owner that's heart's there and wants to go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
How would you compare that to a human?
Yeah, I think it's really someone that just looks after themselves from start to finish,
And someone who's in touch with themselves too.
Definitely, yeah.
Biodiversity is one of the best things I see in vineyards. I love it.
I agree. Yeah, and having animals, just incorporating your environment into the vineyard. Yeah.
Darryl, you got one big job ahead of you, but you seem well positioned, ready to roll.
Yeah,
you get lots of help too.
Yeah. No, it's a great team. It's I tell everyone I do it all myself, but really I don't.
Yeah.
So, it's a fantastic team and a great company. I couldn't be happier. This
great
is
property as always. People are welcome to visit Mission Hill. They're well set up to take guests throughout the entire year. Fantastic tasting programs and so many different things you can do at the winery. We did mention the wine, so people could go to the website.
Yes.
Which is missionhillwinery.com?
That's the one, missionhillwinery.com. Yes.
And that's where you would sign up to join, to be able to have access to the special terroir wines and other offerings from the winery.
That's correct, yeah. It's called our Privileges Club, and we have 3 levels of membership, and all the details are on the website. It's an amazing club, and you have first access to concerts, to incredible dinners, and it's a lot more than, you're part of the Mission Hill family.
We didn't even talk about one of my favorite wines, Perpetua, but you'll have to come back and we can chat about that and other Chardonnays.
Sounds great.
Darryl,
and one more thing.
Yeah, sorry.
What is so unique about the Okanagan Valley?
I think lifestyle is, and when I say lifestyle, I'm not ignoring the wine part of it. Wine is such an important part of lifestyle, and I've lived and worked in regions around the world where the wine's so secondary to the region you're living in, even though you're making wine. Hawke's Bay was a great example. Most people were still surprised that wine was part of their region, but you come to the Okanagan and the lifestyle is about, and not just grapes and wine, but it's fruit, it's cherries, it's it's peaches, it's all of that.
Yes.
Incredibly multicultural community, great tourism, but then nature all around you. The beautiful lakes in the middle, and I couldn't. I've been lucky enough to make wine in 3 countries and 6 different regions, and it's home. I'm not moving, and the Okanagan's it for me, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think as your partner said, Tony, Dave Lorison, Mission Hill really is awesome. I mean, the word, everybody uses it, but when you think of Mission Hill, it is awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I was making a joke at our post-harvest party last year that it's been my dream since I was 5 years old to work at Mission Hill. So, wow. but it really, not really, but it's I didn't even know about Mission Hill. But the point is, it's it is a dream job for me. And when I think of, I'm biased, but when I think of the great winemaking jobs in Canada, I feel very blessed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're in place. I didn't get to see you when you started right away the way I did John, but it was great to catch up with you today. And but I always love to tell the story about meeting John the first time I met him, going in the winery, him telling me his dreams and plans for Mission Hill, and when we came outside it was snowing. And he said, "Do you want to lift down to the airport?" I said, "Sure." And then we started going down the hill, and I said, "Have you ever driven in snow, like down a hill?" And he said, "Well, not really." And we were almost quickly in the Quailsgate Vineyard by the time we got to the bottom of the hill. It was fun. Darryl, great to see you again.
Thank you.
Good luck with 2016.
Yes.
And all the new plans up at Mission Hill.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
Darryl Brooker, Chief Winemaker, Mission Hill. He's heading back to the booth. If you want to taste his wine, you can wander over there and have a chat with him about all the wines he's pouring. It's a special edition of the Best of Food and Wine. CL 650's Best of Food and Wine is live on location at the 2016 Vancouver International Wine Festival. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about olive oil in Tuscany.
I can't wait.
This is Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on CL 650.